Hello, everyone, and good afternoon to those of you who are connecting from Europe, actually. How are you today? Thank you so much for joining our Freelance Tech Academy webinar on the topic of the Metaverse Stack, what is happening at the moment. We are really delighted to host you here today. So the Metaverse is the latest catchphrase in the tech industry. And there is a lot of buzz, a lot of announcements about this topic. And I hope you guys enjoy this webinar and learn something interesting today. I hope the sound is good. Before we start, I am Gary. My name is Gergana, the event manager of Code Control and 9 AM. For those of you who are not familiar, Code Control is a curated freelance marketplace of the best tech talents in Europe. We are a remote-first company founded in 2016, and 9 AM is actually our newly launched platform for all kinds of freelancers, where we are aiming to make their lives easier. If you're interested, of course, you can check it out at 9 AM. It works. Today, I am joined by one of our amazing community members, Clemens Gammer. Clemens has a strong track record in product management, product innovation in the startup and also the corporate space. He's specifically excited about human and artificial presence in this new spatial medium. Clemens is the founder of Project AVE, or AVE, a Berlin-based studio helping brands leverage the new tools and platforms making up the Metaverse and Web3 to create meaningful experiences for their audiences. They also help brands establish their presence in the world through always-on, highly accessible, beautifully designed and alive experiences. The webinar today is going to take about an hour. Clemens will be presenting for about 30-40 minutes. And after all, we are going to have a Q&A session for about 15 minutes. Please ask your questions down below on the Q&A section in Zoom. So at the end, he is going to answer them for you. And I think we are good to go.
Okay, hi guys. Thanks for the introduction, Gary, and thank you very much for the chance to speak to you guys today. Like everyone else, I guess I'm also new to the space, so it's a big space of exploration at the moment. Yeah, I'll be sharing you some of the insights that I gathered over the last 2-3 years in this space and what excites me. Maybe to start this off quickly, also maybe how we got in touch here. I've been, like I did Project as a product manager together with Code Control before I started Project AVE. I have a background in design thinking and was in the automotive industry for a while in innovation teams, and then became freelance product manager for about 5 years before I started Project AVE. So like maybe quickly how I got into this. So I was doing research on autonomous driving actually these like 4 or 5 years ago. And looking at the touch points of autonomous driving. So if a rider, let's say, goes into a car, what's the touch points with the car? And I found patents from, I think, Apple and Tesla at that time, where they patented certain technologies around head-mounted displays, so glasses inside cars, which made me map the whole experience of autonomous driving in AR by then, and that's kind of how my rabbit hole started happening. And yes, since then it's been an interesting journey. I'll share my screen quickly. Okay. Okay. Can you see the full presentation?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I switched to full screen. Cool. So just to tell you what we do quickly, Project AVE is we're a small studio focusing on bringing real-time technologies into applications of brands and creators. So basically what we do is we do some consulting if people have questions about the metaverse and how they can get involved. We help then design applications. So for example, showrooms, or like in the last half year, we produced a couple of shows in the virtual fashion space. Have development capabilities to create custom applications for clients if they need them, for example, like custom showrooms. So that's what we do. Like quickly to talk about what the metaverse is. I mean, it's such a huge topic, and I mean, I'm sure you're aware of the announcement of Facebook turning Meta. Which is basically like a big push to show that that's their long-term strategy to become a central player in this space, / also to occupy what they think of the next paradigm in computing. So I mean, the metaverse, I copied the Wikipedia article here today because there's still a big discussion around what it actually is. It's said to be a network of 3D worlds focused on social connection. The question is, like, a lot of people that have been in gaming, what's the difference, right? So we have Roblox that has, like, I don't know, 250 million active users, monthly active users. Minecraft similarly big, and Fortnite similarly big, which, you know, like people that think about metaverse already like consider as early versions of what that paradigm is. I think there is some adjustments to it though. Sorry, I'm just going to jump these 2-3 slides quickly, because I think the term metaverse really describes more everyday applications of these kind of real-time technologies than that are not gaming. So just as I mean, hanging out as a very simple application, right? I mean, the way we hang out today is like we get a drink in a bar, we meet online in a, I don't know, Zoom or Zoom call, or Google Hangout or something like that. And that already happens in a lot of these virtual worlds or virtual platforms that I just mentioned. But I guess the reason for people to coming in is still a certain gaming activity. And I guess the metaverse basically describes everything that is kind of outside of that. Yeah, of course, work meetings. You maybe have heard of Meta Horizon workrooms. So there's this whole area of collaboration and working, and then there is, you know, like a lot of new topics like teaching, learning how to cook, you know, like education, then services like opening a bank account, you know, presenting a new car as a car company and things like that. So I guess the one of the differentiators, at least conceptually, from you know, like the way we understand it, is that it's more like you know, like thinking about what applications these real-time technologies kind of bring to everyday life. Just to show you, I mean, many of you might be aware of that. The global games market today is about 180 billion. So it was like last year was 180 billion dollars. The music industry comparably is quite small. So we're already talking about a huge industry, right? And the question is what how does this transform, right? Some people like talk about the metaverse as the next paradigm of our online interaction. For example, Matthew Ball, who's a big you know, big voice in the scene, talks about it as the fourth wave of computing. You know, we started with mainframe computing, and like personal computers came into our homes. Then we had like mobile computing since about 2005 or 10, 5 or 7. And of course, glasses have been around for a while. And I think there's also this notion of, you know, like how the world will look like once we wear glasses. I don't consider glasses as the only means of entering the metaverse, right? Like there's different, I mean, as we have seen, like the examples of before, these games can be accessed through mobile, through our computers, and some of them also already through glasses. But the big shift with glasses is that it's a whole another paradigm of experiencing an online world, of course. So it's very immersive. Some people call it ambient and spatial computing, and it's like as if you you are inside of the internet, let's say. I think there's also questions around, oh, will it you know, like will the glasses replace any of the other paradigms? And I think the way I think about it is more as an addition that open up new kinds of applications, or new kinds of fields. Of course, our days only have 24 hours, so the question is how much time do I spend where, basically. But yeah, so I guess it's going to complement some of the experiences that we have on these other screens. There's also this like long-term vision that the founder of Magic Leap, one of the big glasses companies out there, basically proposed, which I think is an interesting thought, that if spatial computing or glasses basically come into our everyday lives more and more, and are, you know, like the form factors and the design is so comfortable that we use them more and more, they might replace other screens in our lives. So other screens being your computer screen, your TV at home, the smartphone screen in your pocket, right? So I mean, this is a long-term vision, but of course, if you think about how much money you spend on all these different screens in your life, of course, this is a big challenger, I guess, industry that is starting to happen to all these other traditional, like, you know, screen companies, or like display companies, or computer or phone companies, right? So I guess that's also one reason why I guess technology companies are starting to get involved more and more, and also people are starting to get involved more and more. Because of course, if we stop doing Zoom calls and FaceTime calls, or you know, have present or panels or presentations like this not on our computers or on our phones anymore, because the quality of the experience is so good and the market penetration of the glasses is so good, then of course, like a lot of the first, or like the second and third paradigm become obsolete. So to go a little bit deeper into the definitions, right? These are, again, like, you know, 6 aspects that get proposed for the long-term vision, right? So you maybe some of you have seen Mark Zuckerberg's presentation. You can think about him what you want, but I guess, like, from my perspective, like as a big tech CEO, they have drawn the picture of the vision in the last presentation quite well. So it's persistent, so meaning like, you know, like if you come to a world in 2 months and today a tree got cut down, then in 2 months it's still cut down, right? So I guess that, you know, like all the states of the platform stay the same over time, or at least are persistent over time. Then the second one, the platform being synchronous, I think is like a very big shift of mindset to what social media means today. Because of course, if you consider a platform to be synchronous, then we can only see each other when we're there at the same time, right? In social media today, of course, you create a post, you post it online, and then you know, like maybe even 5 days later people can see it. But if I'm present in a metaverse right now, in this conversation that we have right now, of course, like today or tomorrow, it will not be there anymore. So there's a very different like way, I guess, to think about how to you know, like, yeah, what it means, and what maybe some KPIs of a metaverse working also means. Because I mean, you maybe know it from Twitch, the numbers are very different from likes that we see on posts, but like concurrent users or concurrent watches have a very different level of engagement than if you only click on like it on a current social media platform. No cap on concurrent users, so the current game platforms can, I guess, host maximum up to 100 concurrent players on one map, right? Like if there's 10 million in the same map at the same time, then like the map just gets divided by 100, and there's all these replications. But that also prevents me from running into a friend randomly because they're on the same map, right? Because they might be on a different instance. So the big vision, of course, is to go to have no cap in the concurrent users in a certain map. How this works then on on a spatial from the spatial aspect. If, let's say, what happens if 10 million people are on the same map at the same time, or in the same city, or in the same like island at the same time, you see all of them like that. That's all of these also I guess experience questions that have to be solved to to make the metaverse happen. The economy, I guess, is something that has been also talked about a lot. Fortnite, like their revenue comes from sales of assets inside the platforms. Like that's how today's economy mostly, or like how today's games mostly work. It's free to play, and then you pay for assets inside the platforms, and transaction fees is what the platform then basically takes to finance their company. There was a big I don't know, cry for what for what Meta announced, with 47.5% taking of asset sales on the platform, which is quite crazy. But yeah, it's a very big part of I guess what will make certain platforms work or not. And actually at a play to earn conference at the moment, learning more about these economies. Yeah, interoperability is another big topic. If you own a skin in Fortnite or in Roblox, you cannot take that skin or that item anywhere else. And of course, so like someone, I think Gary Vaynerchuk mentioned that quite interestingly. So if you go to a baseball stadium or a football stadium and you buy a hoodie, and you cannot take it out of that football stadium, then of course the value of that asset is depreciates in value very much if it only is restricted to this one application. So there's this whole, like, especially in the blockchain space, there is this whole discussion around interoperable assets. So you can take them between the different platforms and between the different applications, which is very important for like open ecosystem in the end, and also for users to not be kind of locked into individual platforms. So yeah, there's no consensus about how that's going to work, but people I think consider like blockchains, or different blockchains that can communicate with each other, or that have bridges, to be part of that solution. And I guess the last point is has to do with the creators, the contributors. A lot of these platforms a lot of these early platforms have a creator mode in some way, and people contributing to actually building these platforms or building these spaces, and incentivizing them for that. So that's another driver, that, or like another aspect of what this description of the metaverse is like. So summarizing this is it's an open 3D place where you can, like, you meet people and you interact with people because of very, very different kinds of reasons. This is an interesting graphic quickly to also make you understand, or like that describes, I think, quite well what the glasses will do, right? And I think that's, again, if you consider the traditional gaming sphere that works on mobile and on laptops, is very, I guess, not looked at very much, because glasses, and as described above, it was called ambient computing, have perception mechanisms to understand the world around you, and also display the world, like, understand yourself. So it basically it has glasses have cameras to first of all understand where you're positioned in the space, but also for augmented reality to understand what elements you have in the space, and what you could, how you can place content inside of these inside of your environment. Yes, 2-3 more things about glasses. So I think coming from classical Web 2 world, or like building applications and building web products, I think the Web world was, to me, was very much, or the way I thought always, was very much about transactions. So, right, like I click this button and this happens. I click this button and Uber comes, right? So it's very much about like a transactional relationship with the platform that you have. And the thing that is very different in glasses is that it's very much about perception, right? Like it's very much about tracking the environment, tracking your face, tracking your eyes, tracking your body. There's a lot of privacy concerns regarding that, but of course, but that also means like all these capabilities also give you as developers new tools to build applications that are interesting. Just as an example, right? Like if you can, if you build an interactive character, for example, and that character through the eyes of the glasses can see when you smile and it can react to that smile, right? So I guess the medium also gives you new tools to create experiences that weren't possible before. This is an AR glass. This is the AR glasses from Magic Leap. I guess you know, metaverse can mean both augmented reality and virtual reality. Why? Maybe quickly about the buzz from last year, right? Facebook has been investing in this space for quite a while. I think they bought Oculus in 2014 and have been continuously investing in it. And already before, I think a year or two before they were called Meta, about a fifth of their workforce were all on immersive media. And I'm quite sure that to some extent, all of the big tech players are doing that, assuming that that this is going to be the next version of the internet or the next version of our online interaction. None of these can let that just slip through. Of course, everyone's waiting for the Apple glasses to come at some point, because that will, I guess, yeah, make the everyday consumer be able to immerse in these worlds in the best way possible. But yeah, all of them have very strong incentives to you know, own some part of the stack that will define the metaverse. I guess that's also part of why we're talking about it today. I think a year ago, hardly anyone knew what the word metaverse was, and today we're talking about it on a very broad scale. So presumably it's going to just become more and more, you know, not saying that that's good or bad, just saying that there's a lot of incentives for a couple of these big players to get involved and to, yeah, build the basic software and hardware tools to make this happen. Yeah, this is the chart from Google Trends of the word metaverse. I think that speaks for itself. This was the Meta announcement. Yes. All right, I think some of this I already said. Of course, the metaverse is 3D versus 2D. It's synchronous versus asynchronous. And when you think about like what companies will do in these spaces or in this realm, you know, like if you did a website in the internet, then you do a brand world or you have your space in the metaverse. If you have a profile pic, the profile pic is your avatar. Yes, then I'll talk about presence for a second. This is the last point on the list, messaging versus present, because I think this is quite underestimated as well. So I mean, what I was very curious by very early on was 3D characters, because that basically brings life into worlds, right? Like without life inside worlds are often very empty or feel very empty. And as you can see in this video, that's a video from Facebook research from I think about 1.5 years ago, is basically what happens when you create a high fidelity social situation, right? I think one reason why we don't see these kind of very core social interactions, like just talking to each other so much at the moment, is because the technology isn't there yet. So let's say we meet in Roblox and we have a conversation like this. It's visually not very interesting because we don't see we don't see each other's faces, we don't see our body language, and all of this is a very big part of our visual experience of a conversation. But since glasses will have eye tracking and face tracking and also cameras on the outside to track my hand and body, it will be possible to have quite high fidelity, and high fidelity not in the sense of the visual fidelity per se, but more in the animation of the character, that will make it interesting, or will make it increasingly interesting to have these face-to-face conversations. And I think, so when I think about applications today, like a showroom, then of course, I take these things into consideration, that the medium is going to move towards a very core social medium that opens up the possibilities to have like activities that are more face-to-face rather than let's say shooting or like a kind of gaming experience. Yes. So this is one part. Of course, you have social presence, which is one superpower of the platform, and then the other one is physical presence. I call it. So basically, we'll have these worlds, and probably all of us will have houses in these worlds at some point. The same way as we have social media profiles today, we'll have some kind of home. Brands will have their kinds of homes, yeah, we'll like. All of these places will come with certain activities. At home, we'll probably just hang out with friends, and in these, like Samsung, for example, in Decentraland, it's their presence in Decentraland. They did a launch of a product there. So I think some of you who might have engaged with the topic metaverse already have already heard the word presence. So it's a lot about being present in a space. Or being present in a world that is one of like a core aspect of the whole idea. Talking about the economies quickly, this is just today's examples of what what could be done as economic activities inside certain platforms or like metaverses. Of course, there is the asset aspect, like they can buy houses, buy furniture, buy skins, and there's going to be a two-sided. I mean, there is already two-sided marketplaces where people create things and people buy things. Then there is like a service aspect. So we've heard, I think, for example, the government of Seoul, or I guess Wendy's, the food franchise, or I think Starbucks also announced something that they will start certain shops or certain offices inside the metaverse. So basically, as a bank, for example, today you could also open a bank branch in the metaverse and offer certain services, right? Like you can create appointments with the staff and get consulted on a certain service that you as a person are interested, right? Like that has nothing to do with gaming. That is really like just a very normal everyday life application. Then of course we have advertising. That's a big part that is being talked about. You can have virtual billboards. This is an idea of monetization that comes from I mean what we now call as Web 2 through asset sales, be it blockchain or not. I guess there's a whole new like revenue model that these platforms can rely on. So basically, like there's the possibility that the world might be shifting away from advertising to some extent, which I guess, considering some of what we've learned about the impacts of this in our social platforms, would be a good thing. And of course, there's events. I mean, events can be a monetized aspect of the metaverse, cannot. It definitely drives the activity inside spaces, because of course, like we as humans come together when there's a certain event, or when there's a talk, when there's a party, when there's a fair or things like that. So there's this whole like I think event is a very good I guess cultural method of bringing people together in a certain space. So yeah, like already today you can see that a lot of the activation around certain platforms comes from events being hosted there. Gigana, you have to stop me. I think I'm kind of open-ended with this, but please let me know if there's when the timing is right to kind of wrap it up.
Sure, no problem. Now We have still 27 minutes, so if you have any like final words or something like that, then we will have about 15 minutes for questions and answers.
Yes. Okay, sounds great. I'll do 2 or 3 more steps, and then we can jump to Q&A.
Sure.
Maybe let's jump to the examples quickly that I just mentioned. Yeah, so you can build a space inside one of the platforms, right? So today you have places like Roblox, Decentraland, Sandbox, or like these, I guess, social platforms where you can that are open to the outside world to build a presence inside of. You know, like you and me, we can just do that today without any restrictions. I guess that's one way of becoming present in the metaverse. The other way is probably to build something more private, right? To have your private space that is hosted by you, that is not on another social platform. There's pros and cons to this. I guess one pro is, of course, for these big platforms, that there is already a strong user base that if you build an interesting experience to that user base, then traffic, or like there's the potential to have traffic from that platform come to your experience. Like here, for example, Samsung building their house in Decentraland with the expectation that people like will engage with their house here, or with the people inside of that house. If you build something private, of course, there's you have to drive traffic to your experience yourself. So there's pros and cons to this. But then for the private part, you can basically you have total freedom of how like it looks like, and what the let's say technical frameworks are, what the functionalities on these on your applications are, etc., etc. Yeah, a quick example of Nike to engage with the younger audience. They built Nike Land on Roblox. It's basically like a world where you can play little mini games. You can collect assets. You can like dress your avatar in Nike. You can get Nike shoes. And you can even, I think, use certain tools there to build your own little experiences out of. And so build on top of Nike Land in a way. Worked really well from what I've heard. And yeah, that's, for example, a shot from their store. This is like a private example. It's again very different art style, but this is the level of visualization, of real-time visualization, that is already possible today with Unreal Engine. Streaming to your computer, like no need for a big graphic card or something like this. Of course, like this is, again, the social aspect is quite low here, but this might be, like a lot of the car companies, for example, are entering, I guess, the space in such a way at the moment that they replace the car configurators with real-time engines that can then be activated, or have the potential to be activated in a social way also. Okay, last but not least, Metaverse Fashion Week. Maybe some of you have heard it. Like, interestingly, the fashion industry is entering the space quite strongly because I guess they have understood that avatars are a very strong part of the metaverse, and me, like, a user owning their avatars and being able to exchange their skins or their clothes on these avatars is going to become a big part of the overall industry. It seems to become a very huge market, and Metaverse Fashion Week was the first big, I guess, big fashion event in the metaverse, and like on Decentraland, that brought a lot of brands together. It was, I think, 70 brands, 108,000 attendees over, I think, 3 or 4 days. And there were like fashion shows, there were like panels, there were shops of brands where you could buy the skins, and it was quite an open platform for people to contribute, which was super interesting. I guess recently, when you consider like the crypto metaverse scene, a very, very successful event. Yes, I think I'll wrap it up here. Yes, so I guess, like, when you look at it from a bird's eye view. It's very early days still. I think there's a lot of commitment from certain players in the scene already, from certain companies in the scene already to be involved in this long term. And I think it also has a long term, quite a strong potential to replace some of the or let's say augment some of the things that we do on an everyday basis. And yeah, like I guess for everyone like me, it's good to get the hands dirty, like get involved and play around with it to see what sticks and where I guess the journey is going.
Thank you very much. If this is going to be the last words, let's actually get started with the questions. We've got some really interesting ones.
Yes.
Okay, for someone with metaverse building capabilities, would you suggest building their own metaverse or building something within an already established metaverse, such as Decentraland, Sandbox, etc.?
Yes. I think the question is what's your goals, right? Let's say I have a shoe brand, right? And I'm selling shoes. Can be a craft shoe brand from Berlin. If you have a certain target group, I think that's the first question is, where is this target group, right? There's this very specific kind of people on Roblox, on Sandbox, on Decentraland at the moment. And if this is your target group and you can reach them on this platform, then yes, it makes sense to create a presence there. I would also not see all of these things as exclusive for people or brands to be either or, right? It might make sense to start with a presence on an already existing metaverse, and then build your own private world in some way at some point. But yeah, it's a question of audience. And a question of course also being able to drive traffic to this experience, right? Let's say if you already have a very active community on an existing platform, driving that community onto your world will be quite easy. If you have a target group that has, for example, no relationship to any of these worlds at the moment, bringing them into your own world and actually making them feel like something's happening there. And that's a big part of it, right? Like when you come to a place and there's no one there, like the experience can be quite detrimental. So for example, if you go to the Samsung space in Decentraland at the moment, there's hardly anything going on. And I think that's very important for someone to consider, that when people come there, that it actually feels like, okay, like there's something happening, there's people coming there, it's interesting. So I guess it's very much about like who's your audience, and how do you bring them to your place. And yeah, there's pros and cons, as I said, to both. I think one key, something I personally am proposing to clients, is that it's not only about having a shop, right? Like having a house on Decentraland doesn't mean it's interesting, right? If you have a house on Decentraland and you're Samsung, and I don't know, like you want people to engage with your vacuum cleaner, like how do we know it from the real world, right? Like we know it from the real world that someone might be there from Samsung, and then like you talk to that person about the vacuum cleaner and they can show it to you in some way, right? And I think that's where like at least these kinds of engagements are going, that like you actually have people from the company, like in a real store, being there to help you around you and to host you in these worlds. And I almost feel like this is one key that we're going to see quite soon happening, that a lot of these places that companies create or that people create will just become much more activated by people, or by team members. Let's say it's kind of like a call center of the new kind, or a store of the new kind, right? Like I think it's good to think about it that way.
Okay, thank you. There is one really interesting. Who is owning the metaverse, Zuck, or how do you go in there privately? Is there another Linden lab?
Very important question, because since Meta grabbed the name Meta as trying to own, let's say, the full market, I think it's a very important question to clarify, because let's say, I mean, if you remember the chart I showed, right, the term metaverse, before Meta announced that they're changing their name, was a neutral term, almost like internet, right? Like no one owns the internet. The internet is a thing that we all contribute to and engage in, right? And it's, you know, like everyone that was in the scene, like when Meta announced their name change, it was a big outcry, because they're trying to take the whole piece of the pie and own everything. So no, Meta doesn't own the metaverse. Meta owns their experience, or their tools that they provide to create experiences in the metaverse. Yes, hardware sales of Oculus is probably like the highest in the world at the moment, and that's like brings a lot of people in, and they're, I think, investing a lot of money into building tools that are going to be relevant for other creators. But they're one player in the metaverse, right? Like you can basically say, you know, the experience that they build, Horizon Worlds and Decentraland are competitors, right? Or Roblox are competitors, Epic Games, right? Like all these companies are basically competitors to Facebook. And then there's this whole, like, I think the interesting part about the crypto metaverse scene is that they're trying to take the power away from the big tech players, also considering user data and, you know, privacy aspects, and, you know, like provide it back to the community, and, you know, like find models to to shared ownership of this new paradigm. Because I think a lot of people that were already in the internet, let's say, they like enjoy this aspect of the internet being kind of distributed and user owned. And I think that's what we're seeing in the crypto metaverse space, which is super interesting. So no, like Mark Zuckerberg doesn't own the word metaverse, even if he calls his company Meta.
Okay, there are another questions coming. What will it mean to be a developer in the metaverse? Will it be an open platform like the web?
Yes, very good question. There is very different kinds of levels to that, right? So there is, so just as an example, on the very high, or like very simple end, there is one big tooling that Meta, for example, is developing is a very low code language to create interactive experiences on their platform, right? So people with I guess at least the understanding of how to put logic together can create interactive experiences, right? I think the basic idea of you know, like creating interactive experiences is not different if you go to you know, a traditional game engine like Unreal Engine or Unity. And then I guess there's also going to be the need for developers. I mean, not only on like the game engine and interaction level, but also on the API. So how does the game then interface with other services, right? Like, I mean, be it Uber or whatever, right? Like there's going to be, I think there's going to be a very big scene of APIs or an API connection between game engines, because it's just, I mean, it's just a visualization layer, and you can like connect through APIs with any kind of other service that is open and out there. Yeah, I guess that's kind of the first things that come to mind. So my personal experience is that, you know, coming from a tech background, the medium itself, the metaverse as a medium, is extremely like is much more art focused, right? Like 3D art focused. It's very experiential. It's almost like a mix between film and tech. So yeah, if you find teams, let's say, working on applications, you'd almost find, you know, like the level of design that you currently have in in let's say web projects. Let's say it's, I don't know, 10 people on a team, like 1 or 2 designers. It's like the other way around, the way I experience it in metaverse projects. So if you go to the front end, right? But I guess there's a big need for, you know, like engineering power in all kinds of different layers of the metaverse.
All right, thank you. There is one more from Noah Benjamin. You said that this technology hasn't matured yet and you're still a few years away from global adoption. How should metaverse developers spend their time till metaverse matures completely?
Very easy answer. Get involved with something that works already. I mean, there is, as I said before, the gaming industry is 180 billion in 2021, I guess. You know, like getting involved in any kind of, I mean, gaming project, metaverse project, crypto metaverse project that already has somewhat of an investment or revenue today will, of course, you know, like be a good starting point. And I mean, I know that the companies are hiring like crazy. I don't know. I mean, especially the crypto, like all of the companies are involved in the metaverse are hiring like crazy. So I guess like getting an initial job in the space shouldn't be too difficult.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And there's one more, yeah.
Maybe one more aspect, because I'm you know, like it's such a hype topic at the moment.
Sure.
We all have to be realistic. You know, like hype cycles come and go, and I'm sure like in half a year people are not gonna be so crazy about it anymore, but it's gonna become kind of the norm. But not the norm, but you know, like we all will have digested this first hype, and I guess, you know, like if you get involved, I think it makes sense to kind of take this into consideration, that even if it's, you know, a hype topic now, and like, you know, in 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, not everyone is talking about the metaverse anymore. It's not gone, right? Like this is a long-term thing that is happening. Yeah.
So I think last question, which will be the biggest trend? Metaverse is that it is very much modeled on the real world, or will be more fantasy avatars and environment?
A very good question also. I've asked myself a similar question a couple of times as well. I mean, there's a lot of mental models that we take from the real world into these virtual worlds, right? I mean, the concept of a room or of a house, or, you know, all these kind of things. Of course, I guess there's a big scene of people trying to expand our like, you know, our notion of what, for example, a space or an avatar or you know, like a forest or whatever means. But I think, you know, like I feel like the representation of art styles, I'll call it, of, you know, avatars or spaces or worlds will very much reflect the real world, right? So the culture in the real world. So you'll have very fantastical worlds, you'll have very normal worlds, and you'll have the full spectrum of you know, of what may be possible. I mean, there's going to be, you know, like the different platforms will might, you know, have certain restrictions. So maybe on a, let's say, virtual LinkedIn, you might not be able to enter with a dinosaur, or the other way around. Maybe in the dinosaur world, you'll not be able to wear a suit when you come in. I don't know. But I think it's also very much about the culture. You know, like not. I mean, I said restrictions now, but maybe it's not so much even you know, like the technical restrictions to certain places, but more the culture. Right? Like if you go to a fancy restaurant, you dress maybe like might dress differently than if you go to the tennis court or I don't know, a nightclub, right? So I think we'll also change, or not change, but maybe adapt our identities through avatars, through fashion, the same way as we do it in the real world, to the different places that we go to, right? I guess there's going to be places for fantastical avatars, or what you see mostly fantastical avatars, and there's going to be places where you see, you know, like something that is very close to the real world.
Thank you. 7 minutes left. I want to ask I want to ask you a question that you sent to me, and I didn't understand a thing.
Oh, sure.
So just for myself, where do you see white spots on the map?
Okay.
Which map?
Oh, white spots on the map. It's just like I think when I talk about white spots, it's more like the whole like the trajectory of this market, let's say, and like white spots.
All right.
I almost feel like it's endless white spots because we're so early. Things that, if coming from a rather traditional background in a like on a gaming conference, it's very boring, but like rather traditional applications that I sometimes think about is, okay, what if like what if I go to a car dealer, for example, in the metaverse, right? How would that experience look like? So I guess everyone that has some kind of store or experience in the real world might have like a representation of that in the virtual world. And then you can also think about like the same topic but from a different perspective in terms of community, right? Like, where do people go that like music, right? Where do people go that like cars, right? So so creating worlds or creating places for these kinds of communities. Maybe technologically, I think we'll see a lot. It's a hard topic to crack. Something that we also like looked into last year with the project that we did was autonomous agents. So basically, like calling it a 3D bot is I think a little bit of a boring way to look at it. But let's say what we know from science fiction movies like Her or I don't know, Blade Runner, for example, that you have these lifelike three-dimensional characters that like you can interact with them, like build almost like an empathetic relationship with. So I guess this is a whole almost like an industry for itself that is being explored of, let's say, the whole stack of the metaverse. How to enable people that create experiences with NPCs, non-player characters, like autonomous agents. Also something super interesting, I think. In terms of markets, I mean, you can go down the whole asset route, right? And say, okay, furniture is going to enter. Of course, I mean, pictures we already have, like with the NFT art scene. I don't know, like anything that like you need, like people will need to populate these worlds or white spots in some way still, right? And we're so early. I mean, even like me having had some projects with the crypto fashion scene. I mean, crypto fashion sounds like a very, very big topic, right? For this whole thing, but the scene is so extremely early still that there is, how do I say this? It's almost like as if the excitement is bigger than the market at the moment, right? So like you'll see similar things like with fashion, with all of these other asset classes that are out there that will populate these worlds.
Thank you. Do you want to share something more? It's like 3 minutes to
3 minutes in. I think I mean, one thing that comes to mind is UX, right? I mean, there's some mechanics or some ways of thinking from like the world that I guess also the most people from the code control community work in, that definitely can be adapted to this world, or also to this realm also, right? Being able to enter these worlds in a simple way and interact with them in a simple way is as important as the world itself that is being built, right? So I think there is a very strong need, is like to make it to make the user experience very, very simple and easy, and the ways to think about that and the ways to work that, the basic principles to think about this and to design it is, I would say, is exactly the same as if you build a mobile app, right? So you can use a lot of the tools that that we know to create these new experiences. Of course, like if you design a button, it might look different in a three-dimensional environment or in a VR experience. But yeah, the ways to identify what kind of interactions are necessary and what the user needs are in the different scenarios, and then like design for solving these problems is very much the same. Even if I said before, it's a very cinematic medium. Other than that, like some people might be able to connect with it. I mean, I also never asked myself, do I love it or do I not? I kind of just, went down the rabbit hole and got involved, and I think everyone has to kind of feel their way by themselves. I mean, what I always try to do for myself is, like we in Europe are very good at being skeptical about new things, and especially if Facebook announces something so big, you can be even more skeptical. But I think this is also a reason for for getting involved even more importantly, because I think there are some things that we've learned as a society that we need to bring to like whatever new paradigm there is. I mean, and metaverse is just one of the paradigm shifts that is happening. So yeah, like feel your way, see what sticks and where you have fun, and then just go with the flow.
Very good, thank you. So we have someone saying in the chat that she or he, I'm not sure, needs to leave, and many thanks to everyone involved in putting together and presenting this lovely webinar. Best wishes to everyone. I think, yeah, it's time to to finish this webinar. I need to share just your contacts with the people if they want to.
Yes, you can find us if you Google Project AVE, AVE. You can find us, or yeah, me on my LinkedIn or my Twitter.
Yeah, I think LinkedIn is here. See Gammer, Twitter as well. So I'll just leave it here for a few seconds. And thank you very much for all the knowledge that you shared today with us. If anyone interested in checking 9am or Code Control, these are our websites. As I told you, we are a freelance platform. Actually, 9am is the newest one. And that's it for today. Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you, Clemens.
Thank you, Gergana. Thank you, Code Control. Thanks everyone for coming and sharing this excitement, let's say, for this topic, or interest in this topic. Yeah, happy to connect with you guys.
Thank you. Have a lovely afternoon.
Bye. Thank you.